So this is your bonus material all about differentiation. And what I'm going to do is walk you through a continuum to help you identify your own level of differentiation, which is just another word for your own level of relationship maturity. Because what really makes the difference in whether you can be yourself and stay connected to your spouse if they've gone through a faith crisis or they've left the church is your level of differentiation. And that's just another word for saying your level of relationship maturity. The more differentiated you are, the more likely you're going to be successful at being who you are, being true to yourself, and also remaining connected to your spouse. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to walk you through this differentiation continuum. So this says there's two parts of differentiation. There's self-differentiation, your ability to identify who you are, what's important to you, your thoughts and feelings. That's self-differentiation. The second part of differentiation or relationship maturity is other differentiation, your ability to stay connected, be with someone, be connected to them and their experience. So we're going to start with this continuum. Let me go back up here. I can get it to go back up. There we go. Of self-differentiation. So on this left-hand side, we have the less differentiated end. And on the right-hand side, we have this more differentiated end. And so this is the continuum of how connected, how aware you are of your own thoughts and feelings and your ability to express them to your partner. So to be really extremely less differentiated means you don't even really know what you think or feel. You just merge with what other people think or feel. You don't have your own, you don't even know what you think. Number two, it doesn't cross my mind to reveal myself to my partner. So you just assume that you're so much the same that you don't even think you need to reveal anything about yourself, right? It just doesn't seem necessary. That's how merged you are. There's not a separate sense of self. So on this less differentiated end, it's more of a merged, like I am you and you are me. We're the same. Like we don't have separate senses of identity. That would be less differentiated. So moving on, so you're becoming a little bit more differentiated. Number three, I expect my partner to know what I'm thinking and feeling without saying it. Again, it's still very merged. Like we're so the same that you should understand me. You should know me. I shouldn't have to express myself because you should just know what I need, what I think. Number four, I only express my feelings in defensive, irritable ways. So this is not as differentiated because you're not really communicating your thoughts and feelings directly. You're maybe doing it in passive aggressive ways, kind of some little jabs, or you're not really communicating what you think or feel. You're just getting defensive, or you're communicating through your nonverbals, which is very common. I'll communicate how frustrated I am by having this angry expression on my face while I storm about the house and do things, right? Or I'll just make little snide remarks, little sarcastic jabs here and there. Number five, so you're starting to become a little more differentiated, a little more relationally mature. I never ask for what I want because it feels too vulnerable. So that's better than not knowing what you want. It's, you know what you want at least, right? So you're separating a little bit. You're not as merged with the other person. Like you have your own sense of identity. You know what you want. It's just that it feels too vulnerable to ask for it. So hopefully you can see that that's a little bit more differentiated because at least you know that you have wants and needs maybe that are separate from your spouse. Number six, I feel ready to explore my own desires more deeply. So maybe your spouse goes through a faith crisis or they leave the church, and you just want to explore your own thoughts around it. What do I believe? What do I feel? What is important to me about the church? And you feel okay to delve into that, not as a reactive, like I'm going to dig my heels in further, because that's also not differentiated, and we'll get into that. But about like, No, for me, I want to explore and decide what's important to me and what I feel ready to do that. Number 7, so here's where you are your own separate self and you're starting to communicate it in more healthy ways. I share a little bit of what's bothering me despite my fear. So even though that's scary, hey, I'm scared of what our future holds. I'm afraid of how we're going to raise our kids. I don't know how this is going to impact our marriage, right? If your spouse is leaving the church, you're sharing your fears instead of just keeping them inside. That's a sign of, hey, I'm a different person with my own feelings and thoughts around this, and I can communicate that to you in healthy ways, not like number 4, which is just defensive and irritable ways or passive aggressive ways, but really directly. Number 8, I ask for support on issues that matter to me. So you have enough sense of self that you know what matters to you, right? If you're less differentiated, like number 1, you don't even know what you think or feel. You don't know what matters to you. What matters to you is what matters to other people, right? But number 8, you're more differentiated. So you know what matters to you and you can ask for support on this. So like, hey, I'm really struggling to find out how we can have family unity with our different views about spirituality. Can we talk about this and figure it out, right? Communicating, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what matters to me. I'd like to talk to you about it. I'm asking for support. Number 9, I can put myself in my partner's shoes and feel what my partner is feeling. So this is huge because there has to be a sense of like we're separate people in order to put myself in your shoes and think about what it might be like to be you. Because if you're down here on the less differentiated end, right, you're not distinct people enough. So you just assume that what your partner's feeling is what you're feeling. You're not separate people. But if there's enough separation, like I'm my own person, you are your own person, then I can put myself in your shoes and imagine what it might be like to be you. That's a very highly differentiated skill. Number 10, I can trust that my partner can tolerate my concerns and I want to know my partner better. This is also huge, right? You have to have enough distinct sense of self that you can communicate your concerns and trust that your partner can tolerate that. You have to be okay with discomfort, which a lot of us aren't, right? We don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to bring up the uncomfortable topics. So we just keep quiet about what's bothering us. And the second part of this is, and I want to know my partner to know me. I want my partner to know me better. So you're bringing this up not to change the other person, but for them to know who you are, right? This self, this identity that you are. You want your partner to know who you are. So you're being very vulnerable and sharing and trusting that your partner can handle that, even though it's uncomfortable, so that they can, for the benefit of them, knowing you better. 11, I emotionally risk saying what is on my mind and hold on to my truth in the face of our differences. So again, this takes a really strong sense of self. A weaker sense of self, like number 5 or 6, it's like, oh, it's too vulnerable to really communicate what I want, or I can only do it kind of in not healthy ways. Or I share a little bit, right? But a more fully differentiated, like I have a strong sense of self is I'm willing to emotionally risk saying what's on my mind. Now, I'm going to add a caveat. That doesn't mean you just get to like have word vomit and say whatever you think or feel, right? You're going to say what's on your mind respectfully, considerate with consideration and maturity, right? That's part of being differentiated is I'm strong enough in who I am that I don't need to use immature relational skills to get my point across, right? And I can hold on to my truth in the face of our differences. So I can say, I believe in the church. I believe that it's good. I believe this. And it's okay if you don't agree with me. Like I'm okay with that. I don't need to justify myself, right? I don't need to provide evidence. I don't need to provide counter arguments. I can just own that, my own truth, even if you disagree. And number 12, I proactively initiate discussions and activities that are healthy for me and us. So I'm not waiting. I'm not waiting for someone else to say, hey, I'm not waiting for my spouse to say, hey, let's work on our relationship. I'm initiating discussions and activities that I feel like are important, right? So you have to have a really strong sense of self to do that because it's vulnerable there's risk of it not going well, right? So um, it's about being so strong in yourself that you can handle the discomfort of the vulnerability and that it might not go well, right? So hopefully that helps you see this continuum, and hopefully you can figure out where you are. Are you on the less differentiated side where you don't have a strong sense of self at all and you're very merged? And so your partner's faith shift has kind of left you disoriented because you have no idea what you even think or feel or believe, or you do know, you're just the middle area here, you do know what you think or feel, or at least you're willing to explore it. You just don't know how. You don't have um, the skills and the courage and the relational maturity to express it effectively. And then the more differentiated end is you really know what works for you, you know what you value, you know what's important to you. You can communicate that really maturely and handle the fact that your partner is different than you and may not agree with you, and that's okay. You don't have to have sameness, right? This less differentiated side, it requires sameness to be okay, right? And so that's why you don't even know what you think or feel, because you won't have to be the same. More differentiated is it doesn't require sameness. You can still, there's trust and there's a strong sense of self. You don't need the sameness to be your own person, to be comfortable in your own skin. Okay, so that is the self-differentiated continuum, how strong you are in who you are as a person, and being able to communicate that and let your partner know who you are in very mature relational ways. So the second part of this, let me go down. Okay, this is the other differentiation continuum. So this means how you're able to take who you are and stay connected to your spouse at the same time. Okay, so again, on the less differentiated side, this is going to be more about fusion, like and not being able to tolerate differences. So the less differentiated and number one is I never think about what my partner's experience. You're just focused on you, right? You're not even aware that they're a separate person having their own experience and that you might want to think about what they're going through. Number two, I assume I know what he or she wants based on what I want, right? They must want an eternal family. They must want family scripture study. They must want to go to church together because that's what I want. Like they should want the same thing. Or I just assume that they want that, right? Again, that's there, it's merged. There's no separation of you're your own person with your own values and things that are important to you that are different than mine. This is like they should be the same in order for us to be connected. Number three, I spend most of my time focused on what I want and I'm not getting. So this happens very frequently. If one partner leaves the church, it's like very focused on, well, I want to be at church with my family. I want, and I'm not getting that, or it's a loss, a lot of experiencing a loss of what you're not getting. I'm not getting somebody in the temple with me. We don't get the connection of scripture, prayer. I'm not getting this eternal relationship, right? It's very focused on here's what I want and I'm not getting it. It's very self-focused instead of focusing on what the other person might be experiencing also. Number four, I take my partner's grievances personally and I react badly. So if your partner's frustrated, you kind of have a very thin skin. You take it in. If they're frustrated with the church, you take it personally like they're frustrated with you. If they're talking about the church, you think they're talking about you, right? You take everything and then you get defensive. So there's no separation of like, you're allowed to have your own thoughts and feelings and it doesn't affect me and who I am. And right, they're so merged that you take it personally. Number five, I get easily distressed by how different my partner is from me. This is also very common. So this is like you're starting to see some separation. You're not just merged. You see that you have these differences, but they're scary, they're terrifying, they're frightening because there's so much fear that that will impact you. If they're different, that you're going to have to change, that you need to get them into sameness again. That's what that's all about. Number six, I get curious about my partner's perspective and ask questions. So this is where you start to shift from being merged together, where differences you feel like you can't connect without that sameness and you're focused on what you're missing, to like, oh, what is my partner's perspective? And I can ask questions and I'm not taking it personally, right? There's enough like separation there that what you do and what you think, it doesn't have to affect me so strongly. So I can just be curious about it. Like, why did you come to this conclusion? Like, what is important about this to you? Um, what's been hurtful to you about the church that's kind of led you on this path, right? You can be curious without taking it personal. That's a good sign that there's enough separation there. And this kind of separation is healthy, it's mature. Number 7, I manage my reactivity and I stay calm and I listen to my partner. This is huge, right? You can manage yourself enough that your partner can be their own person and you can stay calm and you can listen. You don't need to get defensive, you don't, because you're just thinking, hey, this is their experience. Their experience with the church is different than mine. I can listen to their experience. I don't have to take it in as being I don't have to take it personal and think that something's wrong with them, or I'm just curious. I can listen and not get defensive and not have to prove my point and explain why, I think the way that I do. Number 8, I can ask for a timeout if I need to calm down and continue the discussion once I have. So this is where you start to really relate in mature ways. You know when to remove yourself to self-soothe, to calm yourself, so you can come back to the conversation in a more mature place, because we all get triggered, right? We all kind of get worked up and amped up, but you have the skills, the relational skills, to step back, calm down, and then come back into the conversation. Number 9, I can put myself in my partner's shoes and feel what he or she is feeling. Again, this is a really mature relationship skill where there's enough separation that I can imagine what it's like to be you, and I can say things like, oh yeah, like I can see why you would be so frustrated. You feel betrayed. Like I can imagine that feeling of betrayal is really heavy. Even if I haven't experienced that same thing, I can understand that, or I can understand why this makes you really angry. Like if I put myself in your shoes with your life experiences and your worldview and your unique value system, like I can see why this would make you really angry, right? I can if there's not enough separation, then doing that feels so uncomfortable. That's like number 5, right? It's like, oh, I start to get distressed. Or number 4, like, oh, I start to take that personally. When I put myself in your shoes, you're angry. Like I can't do that because it's too uncomfortable. Because there's not enough separation of like, you're your own person and I'm my own person. Number 10, I notice when I've hurt my partner and I repair quickly. Again, this is about being aware. Relationally mature people are aware of how they're impacting each other. So if I'm going on and on and on about how great the church is, and I see that you're starting to just zone out, I'm aware of that and be like, oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't being considerate of what you think, or maybe you're using language like, you've gone astray, those kinds of language that can feel hurtful to somebody who's gone through a faith crisis. And you become aware of that. Oh, I can see that my tone, my language, my word choices were hurtful to you. Let's talk about it. Let's repair, right? There's enough separation that you can own up when you maybe don't handle things in the most mature way. All right. Number 11, I take actions that I know will help my partner feel more loved, appreciated, and valued. Again, that's an awareness of the other person. On this end, there's not a lot of awareness of the other person, right? It's very just, I'm only aware of myself, what I'm experiencing, what I want, what I'm not getting, how I am impacted, how this hurts me, how uncomfortable it makes me that we're different. But on this end, it's like, oh, I am solid enough in myself that I can be aware of you. What's your experience? How did I act? How did I hurt you? How can I keep myself calm so that I can listen to you? How can I help you feel more valued in the situation? It's not just about me. It's like, oh, there's 2 of us here. I'm struggling with our differences. So are you. So how can I help you feel more appreciated in this? And number 12, I'm genuinely interested in learning from my partner's experience in order to be a better team player, right? I don't have to You can talk about your faith struggles. You can talk about whatever you're going through with me, because I'm genuinely interested, so that I can better understand you, so that we can be a better team, right? We can't be a team if I don't understand what your values are and why you think the way you do. If that's too uncomfortable to know what they think and feel, then you're more down here. Because it's uncomfortable, probably because there's not enough separation, that you take everything personal, you're easily distressed. So if you can find yourself on here, you can see where you need to work towards. So if you feel like you're kind of in this middle section of like, there's some separation and I know you're different, but it's uncomfortable. Well, you want to work towards it being more comfortable, right? Having more separation through practicing being aware, because this is all about awareness of the other person. So practicing your awareness of what the other person might be experiencing, practicing asking questions, being empathetic, um, valuing how they think and feel, learning from them, right? So you're shifting from this is uncomfortable to I'm going to just work on having more awareness of how this is impacting you, and practice soothing myself and reminding myself it's okay. This is not about me. Their experience is different than mine, right? So I can be curious about their experience. So those are the differentiation continuums to help you see how you can be a more relationally mature partner when your spouse is going through a faith crisis, or if they've left the church. Because what happens, problems in relationships happen when there isn't enough differentiation. So when there's people down on these lower ends, that's when you're going to have a lot of problems. These middle ends, you're going to have a lot of problems. If both of you are in this higher, more differentiated end, you're going to be able to work through the difficulties of a relationship where one person has left the church or changed their belief system. This comes from the Couples Institute, where I trained with Dr. Ellen Bader for a year. It's all basically a whole year-long training about differentiation, how to stay connected to who you are and be connected to other people. Very useful life skill. So if anybody wants this document to print off, you can email me or contact me, and I'd be happy to send it to you. My email is SuzetteHaltermanCoaching@gmail.com. You can find it at my website, SuzetteHaltermanCoaching.com. And I'd be happy to send that to you. So hopefully that helps you understand a little bit more about how to figure out who you are, stay true to that, and still be connected to somebody else. It's all about differentiation. So when it comes to having a spouse that's left the church or is going through a faith crisis, it has nothing to do with courage. Sometimes courage can also be pulling more inward, or sometimes courage can look in different ways. Let's just say that. But the key really is differentiation. It's not about courage. It's about differentiation. That is what allows you to be both true to who you are and connected to your partner in a very healthy way. So I hope that was helpful, and I'd love to hear from you if you have questions.